don't be shy if you want to. Have a seat if you wish. Two parts to today. The French consul, Robert Millet, hasn't arrived yet, unless he's behind me somewhere. He hasn't arrived yet, but we'll do his part after we dealt with Susan. Not dealt with Susan. Susan.
I'm here, listening.
After we've unveiled the plaque to Ron McKeon, which is just up here.
McKeon.
The beer's on the head, got beer on the mind.
There was a beer. Anyway, okay. And to that end, Gary and John will say a few words about Ron, and then we'll have Susan come up. Hold the pin, the yellow pin that's up here, and the little flag should just drop down. Okay? Once that is all been dealt with, we will then play the last post for Ron through this magical system, and the standard will be lowered. Hopefully that Gary and John will just move out the way. Richard will knock them on the head. Okay. Yeah, so, a great welcome to the Grove. You've all got a leaflet there, tells you about these 7 gardens and the ongoing work here. One of those most important bits of ongoing work is what we call Peggy, who's on display in here. Peggy is just the model of a memorial that will be 16 foot high right down the far end of the Grove. And if you want to support that, there's a little chin there getting gradually filled up. Okay. Right, I'll shut up because I always talk too much, John says. I'll hand over to Gary or John for their
Okay. Bit of a double act, ladies and gents. And here on behalf of Susan, who's very kindly asked us to say a few words about Ron McKeon. So basically with 2 of us here, she's got today's bog off offer instead of just the one. We're both very proud and pleased to be here, and I make no apologies really for reading from notes. My memory's going a bit, my age is, dragging on a bit. I'm sure. My excuse, I just got a bad memory. Right. Yes. For your age. It seems ages actually since we were at Ron's funeral, which actually wasn't that long ago. But it seems such a long time just marches on, doesn't it? You don't get involved in other people's situations, you just carry on marching on. And what we're missing is Ron, but we're missing a big grin and a smile. And both of us have said that's really what we remember mostly. From my point of view, the earliest gatherings of 624 veterans and their families were at Bryce Norton. Ron was there right from the beginning, very much part of the group from day one. His constant attention to the website and working with our boss then, Wing Commander Bob Dixon at 4624 Squadron, got the message out. And that's where individuals that were 624 Squadron started to come together, and those early reunions at Bryce. It was a sort of a loose association really, rather than a formal association. My initial work was helping the squadron leader that dealt with it, which was Mark Dover, unfortunately not able to be here today. And then I took over organising themselves, which was, shall we say, enlightening, dealing with gentlemen like you. Gentlemen like you. There were heady days really with so many 624 squadron members, and we did section visits, presentations, trips out as well, quite a few bits and pieces. And Ron was a constant source of information for us, because we relied on him to fill in gaps and make sure people knew and used his facilities, as it were. So I had chatted with him routinely about reunions and visits, so he was, for me, a bit of a rock that I could turn around and lean on. I had the pleasure of Ron's company on those events, and especially a couple of the bigger events that I organised, which was the visit of the BBMF Lancaster to Bryce Norton. For those of you that remember that was a fantastic day. We had the aircraft on the ground, and the crew chief said, I'm sorry sir, we can't let the veterans on board. I said, I understand entirely. I'll stand back, you tell them. And I think I saw Stanley in the rear turret in 30 seconds. Then 2004, of course, we all went to France for the first time. Lena Mazan and up the mountain, and 3 ceremonies in 2 days. It was a fantastic time for me. I got engaged. Ron was there all the time, that grin, that smile, every time, everywhere you went, he's there, beaming smile. It gave you such a boost. For me, staying with them at the same hotel also gave me my biggest headache, and that's hangover, wasn't it? Biggest hangover. And you know, it was just marvellous. There's such a group, and Ron was there all the time, pivotal. I led the RF and veteran contingent on those ceremonies, and the civic reception and so on. And so all of the veterans received the regional medal. The French are very good little gongs in boxes, aren't they? And so everybody got one of those and exchanged their presents, and it's a fantastic event, and all of those things needed Ron's input. So the website that was very much his was the focal point, and it kept the record of 624, what they were doing, the exploits of the veterans. It provided a fantastic place for research. Loads and loads of people I know used to log on as for their research for Bomber Command or Special Duties. And his efforts were, in my mind, pivotal for the spread of knowledge of 624 Squadron, and I believe that all of those that care about 624 and its men owe him a debt that we are, in part, repaying today. Well, my involvement finished in 2011 when I left the squadron and disappeared back into the Middle East to a decent salary. Yeah, that was stupid. So I pretty much lost track with the 624 gang for a few years until I got back to the NMA here, whilst on leave, in fact, from the Middle East, for the unveiling of the plaque, and I've made a couple of trips since. So the baton was very firmly passed over then to Warrant Officer Mazzotta, and so it's fitting he takes over and fills the gaps and brings us up to today.
Now I remember why I brought notes, just so I can see
Yeah. Which I didn't.
Okay, my first real foray with the veterans of 624 Squadron was during the visit to France in 2004. And although I'd been on the periphery at some of the reunions at Bryce Norton, France was really my first chance to see the impact that Ron had, especially the impact on Ron, especially in regards to missing his uncle. After completing the final parade, Ron had a moment of reflection and was overcome with emotion, and we just stood there, each giving each other a hug, and this allowed him to let all of his emotions pour out. During subsequent visits to Bryce Norton, and after that event, I was able to get to know all of the vets and Ron a lot better. Ron always had a smile on his face, especially when surrounded by the 624 family. His knowledge with regards to the missions, the crews, was outstanding, and he was very proud to be associated with them all. As time progressed, we all know that there were more difficulties in getting our vets and families onto Bryce for reunions. So in April 2011, whilst it was my first visit here to the NMA with my own flight, one of my airmen came up with this idea, and this individual had supported at the reunions as well, and had been in France, and he suggested about us having a plaque at the NMA to commemorate 624. So after much debate and a period of operational deployment for myself, I joined forces with Ron, and who had already visited the NMA, and had discussed the squadron with Mr. Colton, and they actually, between them, came up with the exact location of where the squadron plaque now proudly sits. Ron was a force to be reckoned with. He must have called me at least once a week, making suggestions and helping to organise the event. Ron was so proud that at long last the squadron was going to get the public recognition in a place as beautiful and as picturesque as the location that we are standing in today. Without Ron's assistance, we would not have had the bugler, the pipes and the standard bearer, so thank you again, Richard. And we would not have had the whole event videos for posterity. In fact, I was only reminded of his passion this week when looking at videos that Susan had posted on Facebook, and it brought back so many happy memories. So from this point onwards, we've continued to attend the NMA as part of our annual reunion, and where we could all pay our respects to those who served on the Grey Squadron and those that never came back. Ron's health deteriorated, and he tried to put all of his affairs in order to ensure that at least the website was still available to those who used it as a source of information and continued to flourish, as Gary has already alluded to. So last year's reunion was a very difficult time for many of us. especially Susan, and as you can tell it's having an effect on me now, who had been his companion and comforter in his last years and brought much joy and happiness to his life. This leaves me only to say that as well as the squadron that Ron loved passionately being commemorated here in the Special Forces Memorial Grove, we can now give thanks to Ron's life for his passion and enthusiasm for 624. And it gives us all great pleasure to unveil this plaque in memory of Ron McKeon. Susan.
Susan, would you come up, please? Because I think it's fitting that you pull the pin on a picking tribute. Your leg up, kid.
No, bad, thank you.
Maybe on you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding if you can for the last close for Ron. It all.
Thank you so much. Just thank you all for coming. Thank you for all your contributions to make it possible. And thank you. Thank you.